All right, welcome to another episode of News Buzz on the Twice Told Tales podcast. Today we're going to talk about a couple stories that are related to Palestine. First is in regard to RFK Jr. It's very disappointing because RFK Jr. was apparently very well versed and intelligent, probably one of the most intelligent people who've run for president in my lifetime. And he never previously seemed to someone who was rabidly Zionist or um, extremely pro-Israel, but and so much so that like about a week ago, these B'nai B'rith rabbis who are very, militant Zionists, they were scoffing at RFK Jr. for supporting Roger Waters in this bizarre attack against Waters because Waters is performing a stage performance he's done for I don't know most of my life, The Wall, in which he dresses up like a dictator, and the whole point of the is to lambaste dictators and to make fun of dictators and to say how bad dictators are, and then part of that you have to dress up and pretend to be a dictator is no different than any theatrical performance or whatnot. So to say that he supports dictators because he dresses up like a dictator when you don't even listen to the performance, and that showing that he's actually like theatrically telling a tale against dictatorships or whatever. So they're saying that he's a Nazi lover because he dressed up like something that was supposed to emulate Hitler as a way of lambasting Hitler in his music. So anyone who's seen The Wall knows that this is a great musical performance, and it is on the side of the people. So the fact that the State Department, the U.S. State Department, and all these goons were attacking Roger Waters over it at the same time, and then these militant probably came from the militant Zionist faction because that's who controls the narrative in all these places. And so they were attacking RFK Jr. because RFK Jr. was saying that he tweeted out saying how wonderful he thought Roger Waters was. And ever since that happened a week ago, RFK Jr. deleted that tweet. And then within hours, he tweeted something saying how glorious Israel is or something, some kind of weird Israel Zionist worship tweet. And then he's showing up that weekend at the Zionist parade in New York, which is a real affront to the indigenous people of Palestine who have been ethnically cleansed by that. So he's there shaking hands with this schmooly doofus, this schmooly genocide promoter, and that guy who tweeted out against him. So within a week, he goes from like being called out on Twitter by the genocidal Israeli people, and then he RFK like supports Roger Waters. Then he has to delete that tweet, and within days he's being embraced by the genocide people and saying, "Oh, how great it is," and whatever. So it's obvious that something happened behind the scenes that manipulated RFK Jr. Now, this probably happens a lot in politics or whatever, but it's particularly disappointing to RFK Jr. because he's supposed to be, against these large corporate or whatever interests manipulating the truth in politics. And then even more unique to his situation is his father was obviously killed by Zionist affiliated forces, and that's why they used Sirhan, this dim-witted but likely easily hypnotizable character who's been proven many times as not being the culprit or the only culprit in the death. And even RFK Jr. has openly said he doesn't think Sirhan's the one who killed him, doesn't think Sirhan's the one behind it. And so why would you pick a Palestinian and then hype up in the media that it was a Palestinian who did this at the time back in the 60s when like this was a psyop meant to draw the U.S. into an anti-Palestinian position by using this patsy to kill RFK Jr. to apparently be guilty of killing RFK Jr. And the people behind that were Zionist affiliated forces. And it's been talked about a lot of times, so we don't need to get into those details. You can explore it using Yandex or whatever search engine gives you the actual results anymore. So yeah, it's very disappointing that he would kind of embrace the forces that killed his own father and likely were involved in the killing of his uncle. So that's very depressing. He's no longer particularly hopeful candidate in my eyes, because I think the Palestinian situation is, if you can't get that one right, you can't really do anything, because there's a lot of forces that are going to make you change on that. And if they can make you change on that, they can make you change on the vaccine or whatever it is in the future. If you're that easily manipulated, you're not, I mean, you may as well have a rubber chicken as president, because if you don't have a backbone in the first 2 months of your campaign, what kind of backbone are you going to have in your presidency? And it's a shame, because I thought he was a tough guy. He had an internal fortitude, but apparently he is just as floppy as any of the other politicians. So that's disappointing.
So do you think
go ahead. Sorry.
So do you think, no, that's very important. Do you think he doesn't really understand anything about Palestine and Zionism, or is it that he has been, like, he's just trying to win the election or be part of the U.S. establishment? Why do you think because he also, like, after he deleted his tweet about Roger Waters, he did another tweet where he said that he didn't know about Roger Waters' views on Israel. So, I mean,
how could that be possible? Like, everyone
exactly.
knows Roger Waters is notorious as an activist for Palestine. That's what if it wasn't for Palestine, what is Roger Waters an activist for? What? I mean, what?
Just a singer. Yes.
Yeah.
Just
so, like, singer. I mean, it's insane. And it's obvious that he's saying that because he's being forced to retract. Now, I don't know how much pressure he's gotten, and I'm not saying, it is understandable. I mean, they can come to you and they can say, look, we killed your uncle and your dad, we can kill you too. So if you want to actually go through with this and get your anti-vax stuff, which I'm not opposed to his stances on vaccines, but I think, that's one of the reasons why I respect him, because he's willing to go against the big powers like Big Pharma and stuff. But I could see the Zionist bullies or the mafia coming to his door and saying, look, we killed them, we can kill you too. Here's a big donation to support your campaign. Just don't touch Israel, and go along with this Shmuley character, get pictures taken with him, look happy and stuff about Israel. The money will keep coming. That's the one issue you can't touch. Everything else, go ahead and do your stuff on. I could see that. And, he might say, well, I can get the other stuff done, and maybe Israel can be solved at another time. I don't know, but that's not the kind of person I want to vote for. So, and it may be impossible to find the person that I want to vote for, but I just think if you're that malleable in the beginning, you're going to be, what they could use that same pressure later on, and they can come back to you and say, well, now it's 2 issues or whatever. And so once you open that can of worms of your manipulation, and they could have things on him. He led kind of a wild party lifestyle for a while there. He was not like a quiet church boy or whatever. He was a very wild and crazy rich kid for a period in his life. So, and nothing wrong with that if you can use that as a way of learning and evolving into a better person, which he did. But I don't know what he's doing now. It's just not showing leadership in the way that you need in this time. Like, it's just showing that you're easily molded and manipulated. So, yeah, something happened behind the scenes, because he may have had other events where he attended Israel stuff, but it was never like, he was not like a pro-Israel person. Like, definitely not. He took I remember hearing him comment on Israel and stuff before, and it was Palestine before, and it was like he understood that there was a problem. So now this is very strange. Yeah, so it's even worse to me. If he had always kind of maintained stupidity about the situation and just flown the Israeli flag, that would be kind of forgivable now because, okay, so he hasn't really educated himself and he's just stupid. But, because not everyone can't know every issue, but this is a strange turn, which is not, it doesn't go along with the things I've seen from him before. And he knows about political campaigns and political pressure, so he knows that Israel lobby is a real thing. He obviously knows this. I mean, his family was affected by that more than any. And if anyone, just in passing, looks into the details of JFK and RFK's assassinations, you'll find Israel's all over that. So it would be very difficult to be a family member and not know that Israel and was playing a role in those killings. So yeah, I don't know. It just makes it a very difficult candidacy to. I would have volunteered and helped fundraise and work for his candidacy, but I can't do that. Someone who's supporting genocide, and that brings us to our other story, which is this 2-year-old cute little boy in Nabi Saleh, which is this center of slaughter for the Israelis, this cute little farming village near Ramallah, which I used to go to every Friday when I lived in Ramallah. And yeah, a friend of mine, Bassam, who was like an English speaking guy, young guy, teenager, maybe in his early 20s, but he was great. All the foreigners he would kind of help show the village to and introduce to everyone there, and always had tea and cookies with his mom and sisters. And when I was there in 2009, he was killed by the Israelis. They shot a tear gas canister into his chest and it exploded and he died. Yeah, I mean, I was there multiple times where they shot tear gas canisters. One time in a house, and it was full of kids, and like the curtains and couch started catching on fire, and we had to take the kids up to this second floor and get them, and it was really like the fourth floor at that point because it was the only window was above a really low area. So we had to get this super long rickety ladder and get these kids out of this window, and they were screaming and crying and they couldn't breathe. It was about 20 kids, and they were all in the house to protect from the violence outside, and the Israelis intentionally shot tear gas canisters through the windows. And so the Israelis are just terrorizing this village. The sister of Bassam then died or was killed a few years later because tear gas inhalation. She had like a weak heart or something, and they shot tear gas into her house and she died of inhalation. They took her to the hospital, but they couldn't save her. And a number of people in the Tamimi family, Tamimi, this young, vivacious girl protester. People may remember her if you follow the Palestinian situation. She was arrested for 8 years or something like that for just slapping a soldier who was trying to impose himself on their land. These are indigenous people. These are the people who lived in this land, and then there are these occupation forces.
Generations.
The occupation force was trying to manhandle a child, and the child slapped him, and then the Israeli government arrests the child and puts them in prison for 8 years. So, like, man, she might have been, was she over the age of 16? I don't know, it doesn't matter. She was a young lady, a young girl at the time, whether she was technically a child or not. And this was a fully armed man with a gun and flak jacket, whatever. And someone slaps him and they give her 8 years in prison. So yeah, this has been an ongoing war against this small little village because the land thieves, the word settler implies that you're doing something good, like settlement in the American aesthetic is like something good. You're taking the wild and turning it into useful land. But this settler word in Israel, it really should be used. It's just they're thieves, these foreign thieves have set up a camp next to this village, and they're just trying to accumulate more of the village land, and so they keep encroaching, and the village is not having that. And so they protest back, but they still lose a little land every year. And then they have to deal with these raids and this tear gas death. I think there was another guy, Mustafa Tamimi, who was killed in Nabi Saleh by tear gas shooting at him. He was a taxi driver. I think he died in 2011. There's a whole lot of death of the Tamimi family, and
they all come from most of them come from the same village of
it's a very
Nabi
small little
Saleh.
village. Like, it would be like 2 blocks of maybe 3 blocks of a residential like suburbia in America. It's not a huge area. It's a group of maybe 20 houses. So, and it's all basically the relative, like the brothers and uncles and cousins of this one family that have lived there. That's traditionally how villages work in Palestine. Usually a family just builds houses out when they get married and have kids, and they have this community structure around it. Everyone knows each other. So this is a very classic kind of agricultural village, a Palestinian village. And yeah, the Tamimis though they're just very tough, and they're like, we're not just gonna go you're not just gonna be able to steal from us. And so they kind of put their foot down, and it became Jawar, I think, was the sister of Bassam who died, and I think Bassam, the protests were going on before Bassam was killed, and they had been going on because I forget the first person was killed. Another person started this whole. It was another. I think it was a girl who was killed, and it started the whole wave. I think around 2008, the protests started, and on Fridays there. And when you say protests, it's just a bunch of people walking up to this fence that the Israelis installed a fence on other people. It's like someone's put a fence on your land, and then you walk up to it every Friday. That's all you do is walk up to the fence and try and open it. And it's on your land. It's your land. Someone has put a fence on it. And so you go up there and try to open it, and then the Israelis, and then you just throw rocks over the fence at the armed soldiers who are trying to impose this theft of your land. So, it's not even a protest, just trying to maintain your property rights in a really a situation where there's a great power disparity. And so, yeah, last week they just shot a 2-year-old kid in the head, and he was in the hospital for a couple days, and then he died. It's very cute, and just seems unbelievable that it's not reported. I mean, it's not at this point. It's not. I mean, when I was living over there back in, over 10 years ago, they were shooting kids in the head all the time, and I went to the hospital. I took pictures of the X-rays of the kids with the bullets in their head. I mean, the X-rays they did of the kid with the bullet in the head, so you could see it was like an actual lead bullet. It wasn't like it was a NATO round, so it came from the U.S. It was not like a rubber bullet like they would say. Oh, it's just an accident. No, this is intentionally shooting kids in the head. And the one guy I really documented a lot of, his hands were bound behind him before they shot him in the head. So it was like the Israeli terrorists, the Jewish terrorists, they took this kid, they tied him up, they shot him, and then there was a protest about that shooting, and then they shot more of the children who came to protest it. And so I think there was like 4 killings in one weekend there. And I just collected the video and photos of this, and I tried to get it like on NPR. I tried to send it to all these editors in the US because I was naive. I wasn't there as a journalist. I was there working for an NGO, and I thought, well, why aren't people in the US like covering this stuff? So I was like, well, I have a camera. I really like photography. I'm going to go document this. So I took all kinds of photos and went and tried to send it to all the. I was so naive. I was like, I thought maybe they just weren't having access. I was like, no, they didn't even want it. They were like, no, we don't want this. Because it's like, Their whole point is propaganda. The U.S. media has nothing to do with telling the reality. They don't want people here to know that that's what their taxpayer money is going for, because it's all the Israeli mafia is there to get the money from America to do their crimes. They don't want the Americans to know about the crimes because then they won't give the money. So it's supposed to be a hide. Anyway, so RFK Jr. is supporting the slaughter of children, and I can't go along with that. That's basically my thesis on this rant. Sorry, I didn't let you talk.
No, I mean, you have firsthand experience of what was happening in Ramallah and in Palestine in general, so there's nothing that I could add to it, but it's so disturbing, what is happening there and how people are kind of justifying Zionism and the genocide of a nation and just the killing of little children. And I'm thinking, imagine something like that has happened inside Iran, like a child was being killed every, I don't know how many days or so, and what an uproar there would be everywhere and in the world, and how there would be resolutions after resolutions and sanctions after sanctions against the Iranian nation because it's a child killer regime or whatever, but nobody's talking about what the Zionist regime is doing. It's really sad and disturbing, and it kind of disappoints you from it makes you lose any hope that you could have in the political system in the US, but it's also very good that you become more realistic about what is happening. Like every now and then, I think they will come up with a candidate that might appeal to nonconformist people who can see through the propaganda, but then you will find that they're just part of the same system and they're not going to do anything against the Israeli lobby, for example, or the influence of Zionism in the political system in the US or in Europe.
Well, that's the third rail is Zionism. So that's the thing. Like if your candidate is a genuine candidate, that will be anti-Zionist, and so you'll know who's controlled and who isn't. And so that's why it's it's pointless to back RFK Jr. if you think he's going to change stuff that actually matters. He might irritate some zombified liberals, but so will Trump. So I personally think Trump would be more entertaining.
Yeah.
So I mean, if I had to choose between the two, just on what I thought would happen. I mean, I don't like Trump at all, but in terms of the outcome, I don't think you're going to get much more out of an RFK Jr. He'll never be elected, but I mean, even the candidacy itself, the Democrats are not going to have a debate, which is insane. I mean, how is that not even? That should be on around the world. Every country should be like, look at the democracy America has. Like they're not even allowing a debate because they want to protect a candidate who obviously has dementia from running the largest country in the world that has nuclear weapons. Everyone else in the world should be outraged by that. That should be like, no, you need to have debates. Like the BRICS should be like pushing for America to have debates just for the global security, so that we don't have a country with a demented man on the nuclear button, or at least not protecting a demented man to keep his hands on the nuclear button for 4 more years. Dementia is a very rapid condition sometimes. So you want to protect that? I mean, just have the debates. Okay, keep him in if everyone wants him in, if he's not demented, but you can't just do like Algeria and like roll a guy around on a wheelchair for like 20 years.
Yeah, but the point is, what did the other US presidents who did not have dementia do? Like that's, I think, like looking from outside, it's like it doesn't make a difference for the world who is the president.
Yeah, but if you're a little concerned about nuclear war, I mean, just for PR's sake, at least, just to get jabs in on the U.S., because they're telling everyone else how to have democracies and how to have freedom or whatever, and they don't. So, like, at least hold people accountable for their stupid dances. That's all I'm saying. America has a lot of them. So
yeah, they're not even trying to save face. It's like out in the open right now.
Yep.
So,
well, that's another one of those exciting episodes of News Buzz. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you again next time.
Don't forget to join our Substack community and
Telegram.
Support our work. And Telegram. And support our work by sharing this video